Hello, my name is Jasmine Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl with Therapist in the Wild. And this is a little series I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. I am sipping on Welch's Passion Fruit and coffee flavored vodka, which actually tastes pretty decent. Today we are reviewing Lovecraft Country Episode 6. Meet me in Daegu. Let me know how to pronounce it. Because I don't want to mess it up, but I love this episode, that we're incorporating another culture of color into the series, and we're just kind of exploring, the different aspects of that culture that is, and how it is affecting the main characters in this movie, the other main characters. But basically, we are getting a sense of Atticus during his wartime, and also who is this woman that keeps calling him and telling him he's going to die, or he keeps calling her and asking her what she means and why she's saying this and all this other stuff. So anyways, we meet Gia. I think that's how you say her name, Gia. Let me know if I'm saying it wrong. But we meet her in 1949, the fall of 1949. She is sitting in a movie theater watching a Judy Garland movie, and she's just fascinated by the whole love story, the songs, the music. We think that she's waiting for a couple to leave, and then she starts dancing in the theater to the music and singing the song and things like that. But actually, it's all in her head. It's a fantasy in her mind. But these movies are soothing to her and make her feel happy and things like that. So we come to find out that she's a nursing student, and she lives with her mother, and basically her mother has been stressing out about not feeling like her family has honor. She feels like her family's being looked down upon because the husband is dead, and there was some rumors going around that he was doing something to her daughter. And so her mother feels like if Gia brings a man home, then the neighbors will look highly on them again. So, we're starting off thinking that, this is just about marriage. She needs to find a man and and honor and bringing honor to us all. And so, we see her in nursing school, and she is having trouble finding men and dating and things like that. And she's standing around noticing another nursing student. I forgot her name. But a lot of the nurses are surrounded around her talking about the person that she's been dating, and saying that she might end up married to this person. She doesn't even have to be a nurse then, because she'll be married and whatever. And G.I. is just noticing this and just being like all up in their mouths, just listening to what they're saying and stuff like that. And then next we see her at a speed dating event, and she is talking to one man after the next. So basically the women had asked the other woman so they're talking to the other woman, and they're asking her what she did or what she said to catch this guy. And she's basically saying that she said something about him being smart or something like that. Next, after the class, she goes to the speed dating thing, and she's using what the girl said in class as a way to mac up the dudes. And she's also using lines from the Judy Garland movie. And then one dude seems to like the movies as well, and so he brings it up that I like these movies too, and she thinks that it's something, but it turns out to be nothing. And then we see the dudes just marking her off. They don't like her. And next, I believe she's about to leave the speed dating thing, and then the girl from class that was talking to all the other girls about the dude that she was trying to be with or hang out with or date or whatever sees her, and she's like, why don't you come for drinks with us after this, because this shit is boring, none of these dudes are interesting, and they're all engineer students, so of course they're not going to want to talk about anything. And she grabs her hand, and there's like these flirty undertones with her grabbing her hand and stuff like that and talking to her. And G.I. is talking to her about how her mom wants her to bring a man home and bring honor to the family and all this other shit. And G.I. is like, you're not going to find a man here with all these engineering students. And so when she's leaving, she compliments her socks and things like that. And so I think there was like some flirty undertones there. And they, because they had conversations later on too about her, being her own person and things like that. She then, we see her then at a bar by herself because the girl had invited her out. I thought she had said yes, but then we see her at a bar by herself, and she is talking to this man. And she takes him home. So she found a man. She takes him home, and she, is having sex with him. And, it looks normal. It's like, okay, she's having a little one night stand. I don't know how they like that over there in Korea with the one night stands and stuff back in them times, but she doing her thing. And then all of a sudden, these like furry tentacles and shit start coming out her face, all of her orifices, and impaling this man like right after he has an orgasm. And he has a ugly orgasm face. I'm sorry, I said what I said. Right after he has an orgasm, she sticks all of her tentacles inside of him, and then he explodes in this, or no, then she like can see all of his memories, like, so he's climbing a mountain, and I think he has a kid or something like that. And then he explodes into this giant bloody mess. And so then that's how it's solidified that there's something going on here with her, something that is not necessarily normal. After the man explodes, her mom then comes into the room and basically tells her 10 more and then you'll be free or some shit like that. And so basically her mom's in on this, and that whole thing about her needing to find a man has nothing to do with her finding a husband, is finding these men to suck their souls out. So apparently she's sucking their souls out, and she is killing them. So then we see her at the movie theaters again, and she's about to watch this movie, and this cartoon propaganda comes on before the movie, and it's basically telling them that, not to accept racist people or something like that. And I think it's about racism against the Koreans and stuff like that. And then the movie's about to come on, and then there's an earthquake, and then the film like looks like it's burnt. So she goes outside, and there's army trucks going by, and they're the United States Army, and they're basically saying that we're here to protect you, and they're throwing flyers out at everybody and all this other stupid shit. So next, it's the summer of 1950, and like I said, the soldiers are passing out flyers, and so telling them that they're here to protect them, and she's using the fires to burn in the fireplace. And so apparently it's her birthday, and her mom made her this special soup that she makes for her daughter, and they're sitting there eating, and apparently Ji-ah then mentions that, oh, your husband liked this soup, and this was your husband's favorite soup or whatever. The mom then looks up at her, because she kept saying in the beginning something about your husband this and your husband that, but then calling her mom. So it was kind of weird. I thought it was like I think he is a stepdad though. So come to find out, the mom summons Ji-ah. She is what's called a kumiha, a nine-tailed fox spirit. So like, Naruto, but it's for Korea. So there's like a nine-tailed fox spirit in China, Korea, and Japan. But in Korea, the spirit like takes the shape of a young woman and eats people. And so the mom summons her because apparently it's implied that the husband was molesting her daughter and ended up murdering her or killing her. And so she summons the spirit to kill her husband. And so now the spirit is inside of her daughter's body, but she wants her daughter back. She wants to turn her back into a human. And so she went to a shaman who told her that if Ji-ha kills 100 folks, 100 men, then she will turn back into a human being, into her daughter. Ji-ha has no memories of being her daughter. She only remembers the men who she, had sex with and then killed and stuff like that. But, the mom is just like adamant that she kill people so that she can have her daughter back. At this point, she only has 2 more souls to absorb, and her mom is just really upset because she hasn't brought anybody home in 2 months. And Jiha is having second thoughts because not Ha, Jiha, I think that's how you say it. Gia is having second thoughts because she doesn't want to turn back into a human. She's like considering, like, I just want to be me. We then go to the hospital. We see that she's working in one of the army hospitals, and the men are gross, the men are racist, and one man is about to get his leg cut off, and he says, I don't want these such and such to cut me up. They're gonna cut me up. And he's hysterical as well because his leg is already halfway off and he's in pain. But it's like, you're hysterical, and then you go to racism as whatever. Anyways, she's then walking home with her friend. They become friends. So the girl that seems kind of flirty with her, and the girl is just talking to her about being herself, loving herself, then that we all should be able to be ourselves and things like that. So we're getting like maybe some LGBTQ undertones here, but the girl is also a communist supporter. So this is like a communist war and whatever, and she's a communist supporter, and she feels just a type of way that there's American soldiers there and they're killing the communists and things like that. And Gia doesn't know how to respond to this. She does say that she does want to be herself, and she talks to her about how her mom wants her to change, but she wants to say the same. And the girl's like, well, why don't you say the same? Why don't you just be yourself? Of course, the girl doesn't know that she's a kumiha and all this other shit, but she's just thinking like, you should be able to be yourself. So in the course of this conversation, a truck pulls up, and they end up hanging this man in the middle of the city, and he's a communist, and they hang him there. And Gia's friend is just in shock. She's like, why is nobody doing anything? All these American soldiers standing around not doing anything. So Gia looks over to one of the American soldiers and sees him laughing, and then sees him looking at her all like, I want to fuck you, like. And so she ends up taking him home and killing him. And of course, her mom is like super duper happy about this. So while her mom is cleaning the blood, her mom is saying how she's so proud of her. This is going to be great. You only have 1 more left, and then I can have my daughter back. And Gia is trying to understand what love is, because she can see these men's memory, and she doesn't realize the difference between what the mom's husband did to her daughter and what these men do to her, because she feels like from their memories they love her. So what is the difference? And their mom is like, you don't know the difference, you're a monster, you can't feel anything anyway, so it doesn't matter, and all this other stuff. And then Gia is just kind of in this weird space of, I want to be myself, but I also want to understand what love is and things like that. And she doesn't understand that, like, her daughter had been molested, but she then starts to sing this song that the mother's daughter used to sing. So the mother is thinking like, oh, my daughter's memories is coming up, but like I said, she only has the memories of the men that she exploded and things. So she's singing this song, and then the mother's like, see, I knew my daughter was in there. And then Gia turns on her and she's like, no, bitch, that's the song she sang to like block out your husband while he was raping her, and that's the memory, that's his memory. And your husband purposely picked you because you were alone with a daughter, and he knew that like you would be embarrassed, and you only cared about honor and things like that and how people would look at you. So he knew that you was gonna let him rape her and shit. So basically the mom knew about what was going on with the daughter and didn't do shit about it because of embarrassment and wanting to look a certain way in front of the neighbors. So the mom is all fucked up and freaked out, and she runs out because basically like you calling people monsters, you telling her that she can't feel love, you telling her that she's not a real person, and that she needs to hurry up and kill this nigga so that she can disappear. Like, your daughter may not even be in there anymore is all I'm saying. She may not even be in there. The interesting thing too is that she's singing a song about a butterfly, and that's like also the song that, or not a song, but that's also the theme that was going on with Ruby and William Christina and or Catherine, their name is, I don't fucking know. Anyways, that was the thing with them, was that the transformation of the butterfly and turning. So it's kind of like, this is the second time we're talking about butterflies. So the little girl sang the butterfly song and transformation and things like that. And I mean, it does go into the situation because G.I. is transformed into a woman and things like that. While also Ruby and Catherine Christina William He's using other people's skins and shit like that to look different. So it's like a whole transformation theme. So I'm wondering if that's like gonna be like a big thing here, because and we're talking about butterflies and shit. So next we are at not at the hospital. The nurses are riding on to the base on a truck. So it's the nurses from a particular shift. And so they have to all get off the truck and they get down on their knees. And what happens next is that basically one of them is a communist supporter and is leaking information. So they want to know which one it is. So then here comes, wait a minute. No, they start shooting the nurses in the head. So the first guy that's questioning them shoots one of the nurses in the head and says, before he asks, "Are you the traitor?" She doesn't respond. She says, "No, I'm not," or something. I don't remember. And he shoots her in the head. And all the nurses are just like in shock. The blood splatters all over them. And then next is another nurse. And then the guy tries to shoot her. His gun jams. So he calls Tick over to shoot her in the face. He shoots her in the face. Just mechanical. That mechanical persona of, and I mentioned this in the last video about Antebellum, this kind of mechanical desensitization that happens when it's almost like a dissociation from your morality and stuff, so that you're able to just get through and do what you're supposed to do. And so he kind of has that look on it. He just comes over, no flat affect, no emotional expression, and shoots her in the head. And then he gets to Gia and he's about to shoot her in the head, and then her friend says that no, I'm the traitor, and then they pull her away. And of course, they don't kill her in front of her, but we know that she gets killed. Then it is the fall of 1950, and we see that the theater that Gia goes to for relaxation and peace is closed, and she's in the hospital. She's doing her rounds, and she notices that Tick is in the hospital and he's on the bed. Apparently there was some explosion and he was injured in some way, but it wasn't in a way where he lost a limb or could stop being in the army or whatever. So he's on the bed and she's just freaking out like internally, and she walks out into the rain and starts crying and all this other stuff. She still has blood on her hands from the working in the hospital and whatnot. So she goes back in and she just spends the whole evening there just staring at him, and she's really upset. So then she goes home, and I guess she tells her mom that she's found the last man, that she's going to tentacle explode and shit like that. I'm thinking like this tentacle thing, it's not just a Japanese anime. Like this is like, because it just makes me think of Japanese anime tentacle sex. And so I'm just like, is this like a whole East Asian cultural thing? Let me know if you know. So then she tells her mom that she's found her last guy. She goes back to the hospital. She's watching Tick. She sees him fumbling with his glasses and trying to read The Count of Monte Cristo again. His glasses are cracked. He's upset about it. He throws them down on the ground, and then he starts crying because he's just overwhelmed with just all of the emotions of being in a war and being injured and things like that. So then she is turning down his bed. So the whole glasses things happened when she first saw him there. Okay, so that happened when she first saw him there, and then she had to go outside and have a moment and then come back in or something like that. So then she goes and tells her mom, and then the next scene is that she's turning down his bed. So she's giving him new sheets and stuff like that. He gets up, he tries to help. He feels like he needs to move and do stuff, so he tries to help her turn down the sheet. She tells him that he doesn't need to do that and all this other stuff. He then asks her to read The Count of Monte Cristo to him, and she then proceeds to just tell him the end from the movie version where they end up together in a relationship and all this other stuff. Tick is telling her that that's not the end, that it's different. I don't know how the book ends. I'm guessing it ends like the more modern version of the movie. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that movie in a long time either, so I forgot how the modern version of the movie ended. But he's telling her that that's not how the book ends. That's how the movie ends, and she should be more curious now to see what the ending is. But she refuses again, and then she says she has to go outside and do stuff. So cut to, the nurses are outside throwing a ball around. Like, this is before cell phones, because I was just looking like, why are these grown people outside throwing a ball around like children? So this is before cell phones. They could be reading a book, but this is just out here exercising, having fun, throwing a ball around. Tick is sitting over by his friend. Believe his friend is Korean, but he's Korean American. And he calls over the nurse. Or no, the ball ends up going over towards them. So Gia goes over and tries to get the ball. And Tick is just like flirting with her, keeping the ball away from her, all this stupid shit. And, you know, they get into talking about why they joined the army. Gia is talking to the Korean guy and being like, you know, why'd you join the army? And, you know, if you hate it here and things like that, because he was talking about how he hated it here. And he was just like, well, they're racist back at home and they drafted me. And she's like, well, why don't you stay here so that you can be, you know, at home with your people? And he was like, well, they call me foreigner here. And so I don't feel at home anywhere else. And he was like, why don't you ask Tick why he joined the army? Because he volunteered. And Tick is basically talking about how, you know, he was trying to escape in books all his life and the books became not enough and all this other shit. So trauma, and trauma. Anyways, this stuff, it's not funny, but it is. Anyways, so, you know, Gia is then seen reading the end of the book to Tick. And so she read it to him. He's telling her why he chose the book. And he's saying that he chose the book because it was his father's favorite book. And, you know, it's kind of like a symbol for him and his father. Basically, Edmund was able to get revenge after years of oppression, which kind of mirrors, you know, black people and the need for us to do something stuff. Just saying. Anyways, he's also saying that the author was a black man, so Alexander Dumas. I looked up his picture. He looks like he was mixed or light skinned or something like that. She's coming to meet Tick at the barracks for a night out, and they are saying that Tick can't come out, but then the Korean American dude, that's his fellow soldier, invites her in. And he invites her in and basically tells them that she's a comfort girl, so a prostitute. So that's the only women that they will let on the base. And they take her to a tent. He takes her to a tent. And inside the tent, Tick has set up a movie projector and a screen so they can watch a Julie Garland movie. They end up, you know, kissing. And then she takes him back to her home and she's about to have sex with him. And, you know, they're about to have sex, and then she freaks out. She doesn't want to. I guess she's fallen in love and shit like that. And there's reasons why I do this, but I'll talk about it later. She's fallen in love and shit like that. But, so she stops and tells Tick to leave. And then her mom comes in, and she looks like hella mad, and Tick runs out. And her mom is just looking at her like, how could you let him go? He killed your best friend. So I guess she told her about that too. He killed your best friend, and you're just letting him go, and what kind of person are you, blah blah blah. And something to note is that when Tick was about to have sex with her, he tells her that he's a virgin and he's never had sex before. There's something that happens towards the end, but I will try to remember, because I always say we'll get to that and then sometimes I forget, but I'm going to try to remember because it's important to note that he said he was a virgin. So Gia's mom leaves after calling her a monster and things like that because she said she had feelings for Tick. She feels like she has emotions and things, and her mom's just bullshitting her about her not having emotions. Next, we see her at the barracks again, coming to see Tick. Tick comes out. He's hella mad. He tells her to leave, and then she tells him that he killed her best friend. So up until this point, she hadn't told him that he had killed her. And he turns around, and they have this whole conversation. Well, why did you let me da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da? And she tells him that even though you killed my best friend, I fell in love with you as a human being and realized that you were just reacting off of your parents and your stuff, and I'm living off of my parents and my stuff, and we shouldn't live off of their stuff, which is something that her friend had told her and stuff. And it's just like, we're still bonding off of trauma. We are not necessarily like, you know, it's like when you fall in love with the nurse that heals you, like that helps to heal you at the hospital, and it's like, do you like the nurse or do you like that she was there for you when you were at your, you know, darkest moments? Do you like the nurse and her personality and her interest and your interests kind of match, and you can sit and talk for hours about things that you find interesting outside of trauma? Or so we're just bonding off of trauma. And so I can't really say that they're in love. I feel like they are going through an experience, just like how Tick and Letty are going through an experience. They have histories of trauma that they haven't resolved, and then this experience is exacerbating it. And it's not a good foundation to build a love story off of. I don't care. It doesn't work out in real life. I mean, it does sometimes. I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but when you haven't worked on your shit and then you're falling in love, so it was like in love off of bonding off of a traumatic situation. It's kind of like, I hope you do some work on yourself so that you can bring something wholesome to this relationship that's more than just trauma. Anyways, so they're in love, and we go to this next scene where she's reading him the story about the Kamihas and what they do and all this other stuff. And they're like running around in the snow and all this other stuff. It's winter now, 1950, and she's just reading a fairy tale. She hasn't told him what she is yet. But he then tells her that he has enough points where he can leave. He doesn't have to be in the army anymore. He can go home. And he says that he wants to stay. And she's like, I can't make you stay in this war. And I'm just like, if you could leave, like, why can't he just leave the army but stay there? Like, why does he have to go home? So let me know what that's about. I don't know nothing about the armed forces. So I was just kind of like, well, so why can't, if he can just leave the army, like, then just leave and stay there? Like, what's wrong with that? But he then tells her, well, why don't you come home with me? And da-da-da. And she's like, I don't know if I can do that, and blah, blah, blah. And so what happened earlier too, something I forgot, was that when she went to the barracks to like talk to him, and they was lovey-dovey again, he took her back to the tent, and she was able to have sex with him without tentacles coming out. So that was interesting. And then she went to her mom and basically told her mom, like, you've told me all this time that I couldn't be in love and I couldn't feel anything, but this is the first time I've had affection for somebody and loved somebody, like loved and loved. And all this other shit. And then her mom is just like, well, if you have feelings, then you're even more of a monster than I thought you were. And then she walks out, and then we go to them like frolicking in the snow, and him saying that he wants to stay and or have her go with him, and then they start having sex again. And this time, I guess she loses control a little bit, and her tentacles come out, and they attach to him, and she sees his future. But also, I think she sees because he's fucking some woman in the tentacle dream memory. And I'm just like, did you say you was a virgin though? That's the thing. Well, and the woman isn't Letty, so I'm just like, maybe some of that was the future, maybe some of that was the past, maybe he lied about being a virgin, or that all was the future and he ends up fucking some other bitch eventually as well. But anyway, she sees in the thing that he's going to die at some point if he goes back to Chicago. And I was reading, I was just like, why didn't she sense his power and all this other shit? And I was just kind of like, well, maybe that's how his power represented itself, was that she could see his future instead of seeing his past. When everybody else, she could see their past. So maybe that's how the power was represented and came out of him into her. But anyways, she disconnected the tentacles and threw him off of her, and he freaked the fuck out and was screaming and crying and was like, what are you, oh my gosh. And then he leaves and runs out and disappears. And and before he leaves, she's just telling him, don't go back to Chicago, you're gonna die, I saw it, and when he's running out, she's like, I'm a Kuhima and shit, and he doesn't hear her, he doesn't want to hear her, he's never seen anything. This is before all the supernatural shit happened in his life, so he doesn't want to hear all that shit. Anyways, mom is then seen coming home, and she sees, what's her name? G.I. on the floor in her room, in her mom's room, crying. And she realizes that G.I. has been, hurt emotionally. And I guess she has empathy for her, and it touches her, and she goes and hugs her. Next, we see they're walking in the snow, and they're walking to the shaman. And as they're walking to the shaman, G.I. looks over and sees this fox standing there. And from what I read, foxes in Korea also can be a signifier for like a omen of death. So she's just staring at this fox for like a minute, and then she looks up and her mom calls her over to the shaman, and she basically is asking the shaman, the shaman's focused on why haven't you fucked the last dude and stuff, and she's just like, I want to know what's going to happen to Tick. I want to know if he's going to die. The shaman then says, you haven't become one with the darkness yet. You will see countless deaths before you die. And she lights this paper and watches the embers go up into the sky. So she doesn't necessarily answer her question, but I'm assuming that just the fact that she said that she'll see countless deaths, Tick will be one of them. I don't know, but this kind of goes back to those phone calls Tick had, of course, where he was calling her and and trying to get some information from her about what's going on, and then he called her again as far as the last episode with Ruby, and he was telling her like, how did you know, what are you, blah blah blah, and he's freaking out and all this other stuff. And the thing is, the fucked up part is, Gia still loves him, and he probably still loves her, like has some emotion for her. When we bond through our trauma, it's kind of like that relationship that we had during our trauma becomes attached to the pool of trauma inside of us. Instead of being something pure, it's just attached to our trauma. So it's something that's hard to let go of, that causes us emotions and things like that. Not saying that they couldn't be in love, but it's just like, I feel like maybe Gia will come to America, and they will meet up. Who knows? But this is an interesting episode. Like, how do the two cultures cross? What do they have to do with, the people that have the superpowers and the wizards and the warlocks and all this other shit? It was an interesting episode. The next one, we are going to see Hippolyta, and we're going to see her using the time machine and going all through time. It's going to be amazing, and I'm going to love it, and I can't wait for Sunday. I said what I said, but I'm excited for the next episode. I want to see what goes on with Hippolyta. But as far as this episode, I want to know, how is Gia involved as far as knowing he's going to die? What exactly is the meaning to what she saw? What did Tick see in the journal when he, at the end of the last episode? Because it said die, and that's all I saw, was that it said die. Like, what else did you see that made you be like, how did you know? Like, what was she supposed to know? Like, you ain't telling this shit. So this is one of those ones where it's kind of like filler episodes, but the filler episodes also are attached to the actual plot of the show, so it means something still. So I don't know, who knows. But what did you guys think about this episode? How did you feel about the introduction of Gia? Randomly, it's not random, it's just this new character that wasn't highlighted so much in the beginning, but I still feel like she's an important character because she's been there lurking in the background this whole time, making you wonder, like, why was he dreaming about her in the first episode? Why was he calling her all of these times? Why did he fight her when she came out the closet when they were at the lodge and shit like that? So I want to know, what is the bigger piece that she plays? And I'm hoping they get through a good portion of the story in the season. I forgot how many episodes is left, but I need to know, like, what's the meaning to all this, because I'm confused still. I'm confused. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your theories and questions and concerns and things like that. And I hope you enjoyed this review. And later days.